Welcome to Logical Logistics with your host, Joe Becht. Logical Logistics is your source for news, information, and best practices for all things logistics. Please enjoy.
This is Logical Logistics, where we cover shipping, supply chain, logistics, and everything in between. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the latest episode of Logical Logistics. I'm your host, Joe Becht. Today we have a very interesting guest. His name is Dr. Fred Melius, and he developed a new nasal spray, a unique product, AlpinMist. Dr. Fred, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Joe.
So this is a very interesting subject that we're going to touch on today because you're basically a startup, and it's a product that you've invented, and you're involved 100% from the invention to the supply chain to getting it out to the masses. So first, I wanted to talk to you. Can you give me a little bit of background on yourself?
Sure. I am a practicing physician in Madison, Wisconsin. I am an OBGYN with a busy practice that takes most of my time. I've got a family, 5 kids. They're mostly grown. And we are pretty excited to finally push forward AlpinMist. It's been something we've been working on for the last about 15 years.
So you're obviously a successful physician in Madison, Wisconsin. What motivates your mind, the human mind, to invent something? Because you actually invented something from scratch, which I find to be fascinating.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, it started in 2001 when we had all 5 kids out in Winter Park, Colorado. And it was cold, high altitude, and every one of us had troubles with dry, crusty nose, and one of the little ones got a bloody nose, and we thought, why isn't there a product that can help people with how uncomfortable their noses are at altitude? You know, the only thing we could find was just, a saline spray in the drugstore. So I thought, there's no way that our family could be the only ones who have this kind of problem.
Oh, no way. So not to interrupt you, but I actually had sinus surgery right around that time. I think a couple years before that. So I have had sinus issues my entire life. And so I think you're speaking to a large group of people out there.
Well, I do too. I think, as this is playing out, that's what we're learning.
All right, so go on.
Okay, so we had a great time skiing, and when we got back, I thought I got to do something about this. So I started by just kind of experimenting. I knew that it had to, I knew enough about the physiology of how the body works and how, cellular physiology and how salinity and osmotic pressures and pHs and things like that affect the nose. And it's a delicate tissue, and so you don't want anything in your nose that hurts, or, people, kids, they won't like it, let alone ever buy it. But initially, I just wanted something for our family to kind of play with. So I started using just normal saline, and normal saline is just a medical saline, it's the exact amount of salt. And these osmotic pressures as blood. So when you put it on tissues, it doesn't push water or salt or anything either into cells or pull it out of the cells. So I started with just saline, and then I knew we needed a little emollient, and glycerin is a nice one for that. So I added a little bit of glycerin, and I had to play with how much glycerin to put in it. That takes a little while. You put too much glycerin in, and the stuff is so thick, it feels disgusting in your nose. Too thin, it doesn't do anything. Also too thick, and you can't get it to go through the nasal mister, the actuator on a nasal spray. So I started playing with that.
Okay, so through this process, I'm sorry. So through this process, who's your guinea pig?
Mostly me and my kids. And then as I get one, first I try it first. If I can't tolerate it, that's where it ends. So
All
once
right.
I like it, then I try it on my wife and some other kids, and if they like it, then we move on to their kids and their friends, and so it kind of spread with people. Wouldn't get too mad at me if it was bad.
All right. So you're at the glycerin process. Go on.
Yep, so I'm at the glycerin process. So I dialed that in. I got the exact percent of glycerin that it just feels great, it works well in the misters. And, then my wife and other people said, okay, that's nice, but why don't you make it smell good? And so then that led to some ideas for, there are commercially available flavors. And so I had to study, how do flavors and smell interact and work together. And so I started adding some flavors, but then it made more sense to just use real herbs. And, you can't just go out in your yard and pick herbs and do it that way. So I had to find a reputable supplier of, I use all organic herbs as far as they're available. So they're just distilled with, and they are just, these extracts, herbal extracts, do have a tiny amount of alcohol. That's how they have to do it. But that doesn't impact these flavors. So I found herbs that have different healing properties and smells and other characteristics, and played around with those over the years until I dialed in flavors that people seem to like.
Okay. And how did you determine what flavors?
A lot of it had to do with what I liked, to be honest.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, like it, and then I'd ask around. Like we have, one of them right now in the market is an orange flavor that a lot of people like orange smell. It's a popular smell. It's even in cleaning solutions now. So people obviously like orange. And menthol just feels good in the nose. So there's minty menthol flavors in some of them. And one of them, the Stargaze product, has lavender and chamomile and lemon balm, and all of those are just relaxing herbs. And thought that might be a nice one for people when they just want to relax and go to bed. So that might be a good one to take before you go to bed or on a long plane trip or something.
So you obviously did some research as far as what's pleasant to people, and enter that into your formula to have the different flavors that you're putting out to market.
Right. I did do that, and there's also a bunch of herbs that are just kind of hot. They're a little trendier. There's some new data or whatever, and so I could research different herbs that, like echinacea, is in a lot of different things right now, and I researched in the allergy, for instance, the allergy version of AlpinMist has herba santa in it, and that's an herb that grows in the Baja Peninsula in Southern California that the Native Americans taught the early settlers to use they boiled it and breathed in the mist. They came off the boiling water to help them with their noses. So I did a lot of research. It was fun. That's why it took so long, almost 15 years. It wasn't in a hurry. Just wanted to kind of have fun with it.
Yeah. So now we're going into the supply chain part, and this is always fascinating to me because I know a few idea guys. I'm an idea guy. I actually invented a couple things, and then it kind of I got stonewalled with the actual process developing it. So you have this mixture, and you like it. You've tried it on families and friends, family members, friends, and you believe in this product. What's the next step? Where do you go to get it bottled?
No question, Joe. That was the hardest part, and that probably took over 5 years. And really, I think the reason it took me so long to bring it to market is that those obstacles that you mentioned. And I'm a doctor. I really know nothing about that stuff. I had to start from scratch, and it's surprisingly difficult to get information. And a big risk I had is that if I try to ask people for help, I didn't want them to poach my idea because there really isn't a product like this on the market. So I had to be careful about who I even talked to or how I talked about what I was up to.
So did you get patent pending or patent?
Not a patent.
Okay.
I looked into it, and the
Yeah.
problem is that it's almost impossible to get patents for recipes. So
Okay.
but I did get a registered trademark on the name.
Ah, all right.
Which that, and that whole process takes 6-8 months just for that.
Is that your
Um,
first step then to do
yeah,
that?
that was my
Okay.
first step in the legal process. That and getting just a confidentiality statement that I shared with anyone that I talked to about it. But I talked to
Right.
people in Austria for a long time. I talked to different pharmaceutical developers in the United States, and none of them are really interested in putting a lot of energy into over the product market,
Interesting.
or over the market, you know what I mean, over the
Yeah.
counter product.
Right.
So that was another dead end. Where I ended up finally getting a little success is I went to the PAC Expo in Chicago, which, if you've ever been there, it's mind blowing how huge it is.
Yeah.
It goes, I don't know, it must be a square mile of footprint that's used for different vendors for everything from bottling machines to packaging and so forth. And because I wondered if I'm just going to have to do all the bottling and everything myself, because I was struggling. But I stumbled across a counter there and asked around if anybody knew people who could just help me do this. And I got two names. One of them is the bottling company that I use now, who will do contract packaging in small volumes, which mine is unique. I need small bottles. They have to be, it has to be very clean, and then I have a shrink wrap, so they have to have shrink wrapping. It's a lot of components, and I couldn't afford to order 1 million bottles. So
Right.
it was hard to find people there. And then the other name that I got was who can help me distribute this, warehouse it, and ship it out, and so forth. And I got Bel Air.
Okay.
So those were the two people that I contacted and partnered with to finally get this thing moving.
Now back to the bottles.
Okay.
Who's actually creating the bottles?
So the bottles were again one of the hardest things. Nobody at the PAC Expo would make bottles that I wanted in the U.S. because I wasn't going to order millions of them.
Right.
And so that was a total dead end. Back to the drawing board, I ended up finding a person in China.
Okay.
And so I got him from China, and I had him shipped out, and I beat him up and tested them every which way with all kinds of different solutions and so forth. Because the hard part is the mist actuator. When you press down, you need that actuator to turn, a pool of liquid into a beautiful metered, 100 microgram, very fine mist. So it'll
So
move
for
around.
a layman like me, are we
Yeah.
talking about what I would call the pump?
Yeah, the pump. Yep.
Okay.
And
All right.
I wanted a pump that was, one like any pharmaceutical would use. Like Nasonex and all the others that are out there. It had to
Right.
be that good.
Yeah.
And that was really difficult to find, but I finally found it, and I was pleased with what they had. They did make a cap for me that I liked, so that it would look sexy on the shelf and yet be, as hygienic as something can be that you put in your nose.
Right. So all right. So you find this. How do you find a company in China to do that?
Well,
I mean, obviously, I've talked to. Believe me, I've talked to so many people, and I know that a lot of manufacturing is done overseas, particularly in Asia. But how did you personally find someone that right fit, especially the fact that there are so many different companies out there doing production such as that? How did you find the right fit for you? How did you communicate with them?
All by email and internet sites. So I searched
Okay.
and searched, and I Google searched images of nasal spray bottles, but I probably contacted 15, maybe 20 different, email addresses in Asia, and almost all of them emailed back, but I could tell they weren't really the ones making it. They were just people who, I don't know, just didn't have the right feel. I had like maybe they knew somebody who could find them for me, and
Right.
I didn't have the right feel. And I finally got, or one of the people seemed like she really worked for the company, and I questioned her a lot about that. Like, are you just a middleman? Are you actually located? Do you have an office in the building that actually, and does this injection molding and puts all the components together and so forth? And she said that she was. So I agreed to have her send me samples to take a look at, and that's how it started.
Interesting.
And
All
I
right.
liked what they had, and they weren't like any other shape of any other product I could find on the market. I wasn't copying anybody else's bottle.
Right. All right. So you get the bottle, and now you
Yep.
have then at the Pack Expo, you found a company that could mix it for you, and also a company that would provide the wrapping. Correct.
Correct.
All right. Now, so let's go to the wrapping. Did they come
Okay.
up with the design for you, or did you design it yourself, or do you have a
Yeah.
partner?
So, yep, we had to design the actual packaging. The colors and the everything from the font to the logo and everything. And we actually, to come up with the logo was kind of interesting. You can do online logo contests where you put a prize out there, and that's how we did it. I can't remember which site we used. There's 3 or 4 of them. But we went online, and a person somewhere in Europe is actually the one who had the logo we liked the most, and that's how we used that. And it cost us, $175 or $200. It's shockingly cheap.
Sure.
And so that was the logo. We gave them ideas. We knew kind of what we wanted, but we got hundreds of submissions. Fascinating way to get a logo. It was amazing.
Wow. Now,
So
how did you go about this again? I'm sorry.
It's a logo contest. So you
Okay.
can if you Google logo contest, there are several different sites, and what you do is you just put your contact information and how much you're willing to pay, and the more you pay, the more energy really good logo designers are going to put into it. But, we got, like I said, we probably had 80 or 100 different people submit a logo. So that many people put time into it. It's kind of sad they didn't get paid for it, but, a lot of them, like you can tell, just have programs, and they just punch in ideas, and it probably takes them 5 minutes to just see if they're even close. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It is awesome.
Yeah.
It's fun because you can, then when they do all these submissions, you can sign up other people to vote. So we could send it out to our kids and our, web designer and other, friends and say, which ones do you vote for? And we could narrow them down. And, terrific process. Fun. It was a lot of fun.
So now back to the bottles. So
Yep.
you have this company, the manufacturer in China.
Yeah.
When do you communicate to them, and what's the turnaround, and how do they get it shipped into Wisconsin?
Well,
So you're located in Wisconsin.
Yeah,
correct?
I'm in Wisconsin, and they're somewhere in China, so they're 12 hours apart. So
Right.
you can communicate. I could communicate with her one email a day. I was her one, she replies overnight. So to get
Right.
7 contacts takes a week. So it took a while to dial all that in, but I got to say they did a nice job. And then they shipped directly to my bottler in Chicago, and I think they did it air freight, and and then just delivered from O'Hare to the bottler.
All right.
But that's it. It still took 5 weeks to get them.
Yeah.
But they had to make them for me and then put them all together and then ship them out there. And then so then I also needed shrink wrap. So I had to get all the parts before we could even think about bottling. So the wrappers on each of these, then again, when you're as a startup, it's really easy to find somebody who will do 1 million labels for you, but it's really hard when you're asking for a few thousand.
Right.
And so I kind of learned that the hard way, and some people were nice about telling me no, and most just don't even return phone calls or emails. But I was able to find a company that was willing to work with me on that. And so they actually worked with a company in Texas who did all of the artwork and layout. And those two they got together to get the right colors and the perforations in the right place and all those things.
Okay. All right. So now we go to the actual mixture. So what we have, what correct me if I'm wrong, you have this formula that you've been developing at your house.
Right.
You need to take this formula and bring it to a company, I think you said they're in Chicago, to have the proper calculations to mass produce this. So what you're doing for each individual bottle, you want to make sure they can mix it properly to put it into maybe 100, 200, 300, 1,000 bottles. Is that correct?
And they're, these ratios are so critical because if you're off just a little bit, it's going to burn the nose. And so
right. Yeah, and that's not good. Well, that's not, just speaking from my experience, one, that's not good, and two, there's a lot of products out there that burn your nose, and I've stayed away from those. So
right, and nobody's going to buy a second bottle of something.
Right.
If it makes you feel worse than you felt before you used it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you're right, though. I had to take my recipe that, I know works great when I can make 20 bottles at a time for testing, but it's totally different when we're making 70, 80 gallons of the stuff. So the company that I used has a chemist on site, and, I knew my exact ratios. I had them down to drops. That's how critical this is. I know how many drops per 100 mLs of, for instance, ginseng would go in altitude. And so we had to convert how many drops per 100 ml go into pounds of finished product, and so it was nice to have a chemist who's a math geek too help sort that all out for us. And then of course we have to, once we blend it, it's got to be all filtered, and it took a fair amount of trust, but I was down at the plant the first run just to make sure everything went okay for me.
All right, and everything has to be sterile, obviously.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So how long did it take did it take a few mixtures at this plant to finally get it correct, or did they nail it in
the first batch that we did, for instance, when I make it, I buy medical grade sterile saline that I buy. Now to make it more cost effective, they have, the food grade salt and distilled water, so it's way cheaper to just blend it up down there. And the other thing is to go commercial, to get this in anywhere, we had to add a tiny amount of preservative into this. And we just can't risk that this is going to sit around on somebody's shelf or in their bathroom for a long time, or anything that goes in the nose really just has to have a small amount of preservative. And so the Packaging Corporation just pointed that out, that you just have to do that. I mean, the commercial products, either they have it or they're done in an expensive, completely sterile pharmaceutical packaging plant, and none of those would touch my product. So it was okay with me to add a little bit of potassium sorbate. That actually comes from a mountain ash tree, so it's as natural of a preservative as you can ever find.
Okay.
We use minuscule amounts, and it's been studied to be safe in the nose. But the funny thing is that tiny amount we had to add is the salt, and so it changed my salt preparation, and that's what this chemist figured out for us.
Okay. All right. So how many mixtures until they finally were able to?
It was really just, we made one, and it burned a little bit, and Matt came and said, well, I bet that potassium sorbate's going to add to the salt the osmotic pressure. It's going to move water across cell membrane. So we had to dial that amount of salt to make up for that. And so by the second batch, we had that figured out.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So the batch is correct. You invent this product in your garage. I'm just going through the supply chain right here.
Yeah, well, it was actually the kitchen and a hospital pharmacy.
All right. So the kitchen to another part of your house, then you go to the Pack Expo. This is taking what? 9 years, possibly 10 years.
From Pack Expo until.
But I'm talking about from when you first came up with this invention.
Yeah, I would say closer to 15 from
15 years.
When we first started monkeying with it after our Colorado trip.
And then you find a bottler in China. Mm-hmm. You get that shipped here to Chicago. Yep. You get the bottles. You get your mixture. The ratios are correct, so it's produced on a grand scale.
Now they put the mixture. All of those shipped over to the plant in Chicago.
Okay. All right. So now the next step is to put the mixture in the bottles, correct?
Pretty easy. They just at this bottling plant, they have their little line where they sterilize it and change all the hoses in between each of the flavors and filter everything down so nicely and do all the packaging for me. And so that part's great. Now I have all these boxes sitting in the in the bottling plant, and what do I do with those? I can't really put them in my car and take them home and have that work. So I had to figure out how to get it to the market after that.
Well, you needed to get them wrapped too. There's still the wrapping aspect there.
Yeah. Well, the bottling plant does that.
All right.
So they put shrink wraps on and then run them through the heat tunnel to get them to stick on the bottle and look great, and they're all lined up. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Well, we had to get the shrink wraps from Kentucky up there.
All right. So now,
a lot of moving parts.
So now you have your finished product, correct?
Yes, I have my finished product sitting in boxes.
All right. So now my next question is: all right. So you go, I go to CVS, Walgreens, whatever, Osco. There's nasal sprays out there because everybody has allergies, colds. What sets your product apart from the rest of the products that are out there?
Well, first and foremost, ours have no drugs in them.
Okay.
So it's completely over the counter.
Yeah.
And by having no drugs, we don't have the drugs in nasal sprays are either steroids or they're vasoconstrictors. And
right. Yeah. Would those be the prescription?
Now. Or most of them are over the counter now. So those are my direct competitors.
Yeah, like.
And
right.
so I'm.
Okay. And I know there's another one out that there's another one out that I tried that actually was basically straight cayenne pepper. And oh my God.
Yeah.
I might as well stick a match up my nose. But anyway.
I know which one you mean.
Yeah.
People, there are some out there that have some herbs.
Okay.
But not many. Many. And they are a little hard to find, and they're not very pleasant. I've tried them all too, and I think I know exactly which one you mean. And you think, holy moly!
Right.
It's like shoving wasabi up your nose.
So you have go on. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So the way mine are different is, first of all, you have 4 different flavor choices or herbal choices, and so some people like to buy them based on flavor, and some people like to buy them based on the herbal characteristics, which has been interesting for me.
And can you go over those flavors and herbs?
Yeah, there's 4 flavors.
Yeah, name what products you have in market now.
All right, the first one is called Allergy, and that one has this Herba Santa, that herb from Southern California that's good for nasal mucosa and for cilia health. And cilia are the little tiny hairs that move things around in our nasal cavities, and so it's supposed to promote that health. But that one has a tiny bit of orange and menthol, and the menthol kind of opens up the passageways naturally. Interesting, this Allergy, you mentioned the cayenne. This one does have a touch of cayenne, but you can hardly notice it. It's only a half a drop per 100 ml of a cayenne extract. So it doesn't, you wouldn't notice any burn from it, but it kind of carries a little bit of warmth with the cold menthol to kind of keep your nose open, and so that's a terrific one. That's been our best seller, and it's doing great this year for allergy season.
All right.
The next one is called Altitude, and that one has juniper, ginseng, eucalyptus. They all have kind of energy, healing properties from an herbal standpoint. What I recreated with that one is kind of the smell of really fresh mountain air where you're up backpacking, and it's got kind of a little bit of a really fresh subtle pine smell. So it's a very subtle one. It's the one that has the least amount of aroma experience, but it has some really nice herbs. Really nice moisturizing at altitude. The next one would be Solar Spice, and what that one is, it's orange, clove, and a little bit of mango. So that's kind of a really sort of a sweet orangey, clovey smell. Especially children like that one.
Okay.
It's really soft and it's kind of sweet. And then the last one would be Stargaze, and that's the one that has the lavender, chamomile, lemon balm. All of those are relaxing herbs. It smells great. It has a little bit of a floral smell from the lavender and chamomile, as you might expect, but it's very nice for its relaxing purposes.
Well, I would like to give a little plug and testimonial right now. I use the Stargaze whenever I fly, and I fly a lot, and not only does it moisturize and clear your nose for the plane because it's so dry, you're in that tube with all those germs. It also relaxes you. If you're on a flight to the West Coast, it puts you to sleep. It's great.
Yeah.
That's my testimonial. I to my listeners out there, Dr. Fred sent me some samples, and I tried the Stargaze.
Got it.
On my long flights.
I'll set you up.
Yeah, it's that's good stuff. So interesting.
Well, my wife actually sprays it in the air in the car when we're traveling with pets to calm the pets down too. And it sure seems to work for them.
All right. So to go back to the supply chain, you have this invention. Yep. You contact the bottler. You get the bottles here in Chicago. You have a guy to mix it for you and wrap it. Yep. Now it's in market, and you have 4 flavors, which you just described. How are you marketing it now? How do you get it out to the products? Are you walking in the Walgreens and saying, "Hey, here's my spray"? Is that hard to do? I mean, what are you doing now to get it out there?
We sell a lot of it through the website. But to get it in,
which we're going to plug.
Yep.
Let's plug it right now. Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, it's just AlpinMist.com, AlpinMist.com. So,
all right, so I'm going to repeat that one more time. It's AlpinMist.com, AlpinMist.com, correct? Okay, so go on.
We sell it online that way, but it also, you have to have a website so that potential retail outlets can learn a little bit more about it without just hearing me on the phone or whatever. But so to get it into big chains is not where we're ready to go yet, and a lot of that is, a big place like CVS and Walgreens. I think that's just a little bit down the road for us. Where we're starting out is to get it into more homeopathic, apothecary pharmacies, where people go in looking for natural alternatives to, prescription-type steroid medicines and so forth.
Right.
And what works really well if I'm near an apothecary-type place is to just walk in and a few of those around. What's worked best for me, honestly, is Instagram, where I can.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's really.
So social media is really helping you.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
I don't get much from Twitter or Facebook, but Instagram is an interesting way where I can kind of start to creep on the people who are into all the holistic stuff, and I can find apothecaries. For instance, one in Vista, California, liked one of our pictures, and so I can get a hold of her, and I private messaged her saying, you're going to love this stuff. Can I send you some? So I send her the retail display and 8 bottles, so 2 weeks later, and gave her a week or two, and then I call them back. In about not half, of the people who end up wanting to stock them in their store, they seem to get a hold of me right away. Like that woman got a hold of me right away. Owns the farm or the apothecary, and she says, I need a bunch of it. So she has an apothecary in Grand Rapids and one in Vista, California, and she wanted to stock up both of those stores. And so now I can the next person I contact in Frisco, Colorado, I can say, gosh, the person in Vista, California and Grand Rapids wants it, and they say, well, then we do too. And it starts to spread that way. So I have it in apothecaries in, I think, 6 states now.
Okay. And now, now we go to the logistics part of this. How are you storing this product, and how are you getting it out to these stores?
So that's where Bel Air comes in. And so Bel Air, after the bottles are all filled and they're sitting in the bottling plant, Bel Air picks them up, brings them to their warehouse, and they have terrific temperature controlled modern facility, and Bel Air can see all of these orders, and so Bel Air can drop ship directly from there, either to customers who buy it online or to these other apothecaries. So they take care of all of that.
Okay.
Make that easy.
Oh, great. Oh, excellent. And then, are you on any other platform? Like, are you on Amazon or eBay?
Oh yeah, we are. Yep,
Okay.
We're on not eBay, but we're on our own website and also Amazon.
And how's the response been on Amazon?
It's surprisingly good.
Okay.
I'm kind of amazed how people find it. I think they must be searching other products, and then ours pops up. But
yeah.
we get, I would say, of our online sales, I don't have the exact numbers, but maybe a third of them are Amazon sales.
Wow.
And so when those orders come through, they all get directed to an email address that goes, to me and to, the administrators as well as Bel Air. So Bel Air sees the orders.
Great.
And all of them are so simple. When you ship through Amazon, I mean, Bel Air can tell you a lot more about that, but you click a button saying you fulfilled it, you print the shipping label, and off it goes. They make it real easy.
Yeah.
And so does our website, which is hosted by Shopify, does the same thing.
Oh, okay. That's, yeah.
Easy.
So it's slowly but surely the product is getting out there to people.
Yeah.
And it's a unique product. And I just, once again, I want to thank you for being on the show. This is Dr. Fred Melius, who's my guest today, who invented a new and unique nasal spray called AlpinMist. Now, Dr. Fred, can you tell us what the best way to get a hold of you and the product is?
The best way is to just look on our website, just AlpinMist.com, and then there's a contact at the bottom, and if you just click on the contact, you will send us an email, and we're well, at least I think we're very responsive. I mean, we're getting back to people the same day almost every day. There's some weekend days where might wait till Monday, but that's a great way to get a hold of us with any questions. There's an FAQ section on the website that answers most people's concerns about things like safety for children and how often can you use it.
Sure.
Those types of things, but that's the way.
And I find it comforting. I find it comforting that you're an actual physician. You're not. you have an actual MD and you formulated this.
Right.
I find that comforting that you developed this.
Yeah.
So the website, once again, is
alpinmist.com.
alpinmist.com. And then the 4 different products are, can you go over them again?
Yep, they're allergy. The one
Okay.
for allergies, obviously. Altitude is that fresh mountain air one. Solar Spice is that orange with a little bit of clove. And Stargaze is the one with the lavender, chamomile, and lemon balm.
Great.
Put you on the plane.
Yeah. Well, I love it when I fly. So. Well, Dr. Fred, I really appreciate you joining us on Logical Logistics today. And good luck to you.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Hey, thanks for listening to the show. If you want to drop us a line, email us at becht5@comcast.net. You can leave comments, or if you want to be a guest, becht5@comcast.net. Also, make sure to review us on iTunes or other media outlets that we're located on. Special thanks goes out to Anthony B., my producer. And we'll see you next time on Logical Logistics.
Click the subscribe button for new videos every week and download us and review us on iTunes. Visit www.beslogistics.net for more logistics, transportation, and warehousing resources. Thanks for watching.